pod. And we had the second playoff rankings came out Tuesday night. It's various hand-wringing and arguing and just circular reasoning statements by the committee and contradictions.
Talk about line play from the chair of the committee, Ward Manuel, talking about George's line play. Right?
He was a good lineman back in the day.
Well,
Line play.
Great.
I saw something like somebody had used two quarterbacks, SMU, playing two quarterbacks at the beginning of the season. Is that a positive, a negative? Why does that matter? I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
They should.
None of it
matters. They're going to come up with whatever they want. They just should never have the show because I don't know what Ward Manuel is supposed to say.
Yeah, it's an unenviable position in a non-winning position.
Yeah, and they make them embarrass themselves for 5 weeks and then put out the final rankings and everyone goes back and humiliates them. So it's tough. It's a tough deal. But you get that cream corn.
Yeah.
Get that cream corn.
The jalapeno cream corn, baby.
Anyway, a lot of it will sort itself out. But I wanted to get to this, and this is the Army situation. Army doesn't play this weekend, but they have 2 games left before the final rankings come out. They play Notre Dame next Saturday. We're going to talk plenty about this in Yankee Stadium. And then after that, they play UTSA. And then they do not play Navy until after Selection Sunday. So we're 2 games away, including one obviously massive game against Notre Dame, of Army being 12-0 on Selection Sunday. Right now, though, Army is ranked 24th. Now, their issue, as Ward Manuel accurately pointed out, is strength of schedule. I think he said not as high as some of the others. What did he say? Strength of schedule is not as strong as others. Okay, can't go wrong there. But if they beat Notre Dame and they beat UTSA and they're undefeated, the United States Military Academy, which shouldn't matter, should just be Team X, can they climb up to the point where they get in as presumably the 6th highest conference champion? They probably can't, if they can't get to the 5th spot and get in, can they get into this field? Could they climb from 24 to somehow in as the 12 seed? Or is it to a point where even a victory over Notre Dame would hold them back? I add one little caveat to this. If they beat Notre Dame, Notre Dame's out. I don't believe Notre Dame can survive a loss. They have one bad loss. They can't lose another game. So there would be a conceivably open spot that is Notre Dame's right now that would be out. So you could still have 4 SEC teams, 4 Big Ten teams, 1 Big 12, 1 ACC, 1 AAC, Army, and 1 Mountain West, Boise. Can they get in, or would Boise have to get bounced out? Can Army do this? Pat, you're a patriotic American.
Loved my visit to Army earlier this month. Love everything about their team. Love everything about the whole institution. They could get left out. Boy, oh boy, a woe unto the committee that leaves out a 12-0 Army team. I think that beating Notre Dame would vault them up the rankings a long way. I think they would get a completely different appraisal if they beat Notre Dame. They play, said November 23rd, Yankee Stadium. And then if you can finish against UTSA, which you should be able to do, and then you're in an AAC championship game against either Tulane or Navy, and that would be a quality win if you could beat that team.
That's right. So they can get to 13-0. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
they can. Right.
They can get to 12-0. No, they can get to 12.
All right. That was
before the rankings. Yeah.
Yep. This really is actually, by the way, this is like that great Saturday Night Live skit where was it Nate Bargatze is George Washington foreseeing the future and explaining it. And everything he's trying to explain about like the metric system and why we're not using it makes no sense to anyone. And this is like, you're telling kids at the beginning of the season, an Army will be undefeated. Well, that's great. They'll be in the playoff. No, they would not be in the playoff. But they would. And what if they even do win to get in the playoff? Well, they would still play another game. Why? No one knows. Because they always play Navy the next week. This is classic college football where you like tie yourself in knots.
Yes.
But I think if they are 12-0 and you have beaten Notre Dame and you have beaten let's say Tulane, which has had a darn good season, the pressure on the committee would be immense to put them up there. And if you knock them out in favor of a fourth or fifth SEC team, oh boy, yeah, Greg Sankey would be the only one happy, and the fans of whatever SEC team gets in. I will go join the Army in mounting an assault on Grapevine, Texas, if need be.
It would certainly be fascinating if they beat Notre Dame and then they win the AAC championship, and they're sitting there at 12-0, and their resumes being compared with 12-1 Boise Mountain West champion, right? That's the first decision they have to make, probably, right? Is like, can they get that fifth highest ranked champion spot over Boise? And then if the answer is no to that, then they all of a sudden, can they get an at-large spot into the field against a 2-loss Tennessee or 2-loss Georgia or 2-loss Alabama or 1-loss Indiana or and you just kind of go down the list. It would be pretty incredible for this be the first year of the expanded 12-team playoff. And we said the big message around the expanded playoff was everybody's got a chance. If you win all your games, you got a chance to make it in. Everybody, even the little guys, Dan, even the G5 little guys. And here we are, because of Boise's schedule, probably because of how they've won, and because of they got a Heisman Trophy potential contender on their team, and then you have an undefeated Army team with by far, right, the worst strength of schedule. The Sagarin strength of schedule for Army is 138th. There's only 135 teams in FBS, and that's actually 138 because they factor in all of D1 FCS schedules as well. They play some FCS schools, so it's really bad. But you won them all. You beat Notre Dame, and you won a conference championship. Man, it is tough. It would be really tough and kind of unfortunate to leave them out.
Should the fact it's Army matter?
In a vacuum, no. But we don't live in a vacuum. Committee doesn't work in a vacuum. They can say it. They can hang their little hats on the thing outside the door before they go in. All that stuff. The United States Military Academy is America's team, or one of America's teams. All right? And you want to go ahead and leave them out because, Boise almost beat Oregon. Boise beat Washington State, or, Georgia's a really good 3-loss team, and we needed to get that fifth SEC team in there. I mean, come on. Come on now. It's got to matter a little bit, doesn't it? One of the things we always hear is, about the character building of college football and how, we're making men out there. Here's the ultimate men. The ultimate men at the military academy, who are going to then go on and serve a 5-year service to the country. No, we're not going to let them in. Strength of schedule. Florida Atlantic wasn't very good, so no. Bucknell, sorry, no, y'all got to go. Not Bucknell. That was Navy played Bucknell. But anyway, you get the point. Can I at least add one other reason why we should put them in?
Mm-hmm.
Bryson Daly, my guy, the quarterback there. His father retired as a high school football coach to work in a barbecue pit.
Oh.
He's got the ultimate retirement gig right now. He helps make barbecue, And then on the weekends travels around to watch his son play football. Salute to Daryl Daly.
Perfect. Yeah, and rebounded from his injury, right? And ran for 150 yards or something.
36 carries.
36 carries. Just incredible. Brutal. Yeah, I mean, they can blow up your house, the Army, if they wanted to. So they could blow up the Gaylord where they have the
they could blow up the cream
committee.
corn.
So, I don't know. I'd be careful.
General Marshall back in World War II.
What's
I
interesting,
want an
Dan,
officer for a secret and dangerous mission. I want a West Point football player. That was a statement. Good.
What's interesting, Dan, is the new executive director of the CFB is none other than a military guy himself, an Air Force guy, of course, General Richard Clark, who is now no longer, officially no longer in the military, but Air Force versus Army. What will General Clark say about the cadets in the meeting room?
I will tell you this. The U.S. military and the Academy and the Air Force Academy do not like each other. I'm sure there's respect on some level, but they don't.
I think they pull
other.
for each other on this one. Well, I don't know. I don't know.
It's a tough one.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a rat. That was my most interesting takeaway when I watched the committee thing, because I figure it'll all sort itself out. But I hope it is not Army v. They just say, well, it's either Army or Boise. It's like, no, let's take a look at.
Right.
Because at that point, Notre Dame's out. It'd be looking at a second place, ACC team or something like that. I don't know. Long way to go here. Long way to go.
Yeah, they've got to scale the mountain next week. They beat Notre Dame in Yankee Stadium, and then we're really having that discussion.
Coach Prime. Joe, you've got this audio queued up, and Coach Prime decided to wax poetic again about explain his recruiting philosophy and why he does not recruit many high school players. And at 7-2 with the Buffaloes, he's got the bully pulpit right now. And so that has been the criticism. Recruit more high school kids. He says no. I still think he could probably get more really good players. He may get Juju Lewis, who may decommit from USC. A lot of the recruiting gurus have him pegged for Colorado, even though he is going to head to visit Georgia this weekend. Juju Lewis is from Carrollton, Georgia. I don't know if we said this. The funny part of Juju Lewis is he's a kid from Georgia, committed to USC, and a lot of people think he should either go to Colorado or Indiana. That's college football 2024. He'll play right away at either place. But here's Coach Prime on his recruiting philosophy. Joe, hit it.
Just say we get 25 high school players. How many is going to play that freshman year at the most? Let's say 4 or 5, right? And so now you got 20 guys redshirted. So when you go through that spring with that 20 guys redshirted, how many are you going to retain after that spring? Or how many are going to jump in the portal on you? Let's just do it. If any one of you going to go statistically and try to calculate this, I already done it. So it's going to be how many? Half. Okay, why don't I just focus on 10? Guys that can, see, when we grab a freshman, we expect that guy to play. We're not looking at, hey, man, we can just redshirt you, develop you. No. We're looking for you to come in and play some football. I don't give a darn if it's a walk-on, if it's a Cash Cleveland. We expect you to play. So our approach is somewhat different, heavily scrutinized, heavily criticized, but we know what we're doing. So if anybody ever did the homework and the statistics of these young men that people have a class that they say is the number one class in the nation, then 5 of those guys play or 4 of those guys play, then the rest go through the spring, then they jump in the portal, give me those numbers. Don't give me the numbers of where you rank nationally recruiting, because this is like an NFL team. You always say who won the draft. Then the team gets killed all year. You don't say nothing else about it. Who won the draft last year in the NFL? Nobody care right now, right? Exactly. You see what I'm saying?
I think it was the Bears.
Doesn't look pretty. Not paying off.
I don't know. Ross, what do you think?
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting take that probably has some truth to it. I'm sure a lot of freshmen who don't play these days, right, in this era, their first year, they leave, right, during the spring portal window, or even the fall portal window now. So he's got a point of take whatever 8, 10, 12 high school kids and then fill, with 8, 10, 12 transfers, right? This was always, I remember when the immediate transfer eligibility became a thing a few years ago, the first thing that coaches said, well, this is going to turn into, for the top of the sport, the farm system, where they're just going to go down and pluck developed guys up, and that way they can plug them in. And we've seen a lot of that, right? We've seen that, and that's probably what Deion Sanders is talking about there, is grabbing those guys who have developed and not developing them, not grabbing enough of them to develop, maybe grabbing a small portion. And it does. It kind of makes a lot of sense. He said he's done the research. I'd love to see those numbers. Those are pretty deep numbers. So I'd love to see what's true there exactly. But it's an interesting take that I think we probably will see, unless you're at the top, Dan, right? The Alabamas, the LSUs, the Ohio States, where you're getting 5 and 4 stars, your whole 25 or 4 and 5 stars. If you have to drop lower, the mid-tier to lower-tier power conference schools, I don't know why they wouldn't just sign 10, 12, 15 high school players and fill them in with 10 portal guys.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating point and probably pretty savvy way to look at things here in the real world, in the modern world. I looked this is small sample size here, okay? But Georgia had the number 1 recruiting class. So they brought in the most studs. This is according to Rivals. They've had 2 freshmen that have played a lot, right? Nate Frazier, running back, really good. He's their number 2 rusher. And KJ Bolden, defensive back, very good, has played a lot. Chris Cole, linebacker, 4-star, has played some. And so some other defensive guys have played a little. Okay, a few games, maybe a lot of special teams. Not sure exactly what their ratio is of getting on the field for every downs, or if they're just special teams guys. Ellis Robinson was the number 3 recruit in the country. Has barely played for Georgia. So this is just Georgia, but this is the best class, and there's not many of them getting on the field. There's 2 high-impact guys, 3 impact guys, and some other contributors, I would say. So his numbers, I think his math is not far off there. In the top 10, Williams Winery, the big recruiting coup for Missouri, who they got over Georgia and over Oklahoma, defensive end from Kansas City with a big NIL haul. 3 games played, 2 tackles. Both against UMass, Dan. Both against UMass.
We just catch strays. We just catch strays.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't have a tackle against UMass, right?
Yeah, right. Everyone played. Defensive tackle David Stone, top 10 guy, Oklahoma. He's playing every game, but he has 2 solo tackles. So there's, Jeremiah Smith, Dylan Raiola, Ryan Williams. There's some guys making impacts, but they're not whole classes of guys making impacts. So Deion's right. At least with my small sample size of right here, right now this year. So if you can go out and get the James Madison roster to go to Indiana, per se, instead of getting freshmen, look what you can do.
So, yeah, it's very interesting how he put it. It's almost like you're so you have 85, right? You really need, an NFL team has 45 to 53 guys, 45 active, 53 on the roster, and they can play in a week with that many guys. I'm guessing that's about what a college football team will play. 45 to 53 guys will play all of your snaps, not, the vast majority of your snaps. And it may be as low as 35, right? I mean, some guys aren't coming off.
SEC, the full participation list last year in the SEC, it was basically mid-50s.
Okay,
were playing at all.
And that's some special teams and things like that.
Right. Yeah.
So you're basically wasting 30 to 40% of your roster on developmental guys. Is kind of what I'm seeing him say. So if you're going to play 50, you got 85, and 35 guys are just there. And that used to work. And you get guys, let's put some weight on him. We like him. He's going to learn. Maybe by junior, he's a good lineman, or he's this or that, or QBs, or we got depth at all these positions. And that's fine. And I would still do that if I was Georgia. But I mean, you look at Prime's recruiting class, he has 10 kids committed. He's got 3 4-stars and only one Chauncey Gooden out of Tennessee that's ranked. Now, I may get Juju Lewis. I believe his top 30, he has 4 kids that he recruited out of high school, either last year or this year, playing in the top 30 snaps. So most of his guys are transfers. But it's almost like it's more efficient to have 75 players as veterans and that you brought in because you think they can play right away, and 10 freshmen developing. Just by numerically, you have a better chance of, out of those 75 transfers who are juniors or sophomores on up to grad, right? You've got a better shot numerically of finding 45, 50 guys out of that than you do if you've got 25 freshmen standing there and you're only going to play 2. So it's almost like a money ball game here. His calculations, I'd like to see his calculations too, because I find it funny. We ran all the numbers. What's the split? Half. Okay, that's probably not it. Yeah. It's probably 46.8 or whatever, but it's kind of funny. But there's almost like, right? Like and then I wonder, okay, if everyone starts doing this, how many like 3 and even 4-star players are going to end up at like the Sun Belt? Because
lower level, yeah.
Right? You're just not getting.
What's happening now?
Yeah, kids are getting dropped down because it's like, I don't have any room for you. I'm only taking, right. I'm not recruiting 25 high school kids. I'm going to recruit 12. Now, you also then have a lot of churn in if you have 75 transfers on your team, you're bringing kids in, and some of those are not going to pan out. They're going to then bolt out. So there's going to be, it looks like a lot of churn. It looks ugly. I remember when they were like, Colorado had last year, had 40 guys leaving or something like that. I'm like, is that bad or good? I don't know, but it was deemed bad.
Oh, yeah. Deemed chaos. Turmoil. Yeah.
Prime? Dern? My favorite part of him is saying Dern. Great word. If I could stop swearing, I'd use Dern. I'm going to try just for you, Coach Sanders. I don't know. I just, this was like first time you heard Bill James talk about something. I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? I was like, this is really intriguing.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. Again, not everybody's going to want to follow that math equation. People are going to recruit differently, and some places still can retain and develop. But then
Colorado ain't it.
There's a lot of places.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it if I was Ohio State. I wouldn't do it if I was Alabama.
Right. Yeah,
right.
If you're at that level.
That's
right. I mean, Clemson,
right,
is a good example of they retain just as much as anybody.
Yeah.
Right? And they still, Dabo still hasn't taken a transfer except the quarterback that was previously on his team.
Neither is Army.
That's right.
That's stat of the year. Army, Navy, Air Force, and Clemson. Only schools that didn't take. Which one's like the other? Yeah, I just wonder if it's just a numbers game, and you're sitting there saying, "All right, I need 45 guys. I basically need 45 guys, and if I get 45 guys, I'm going to win. I'd rather have I'm choosing from 75 than I'm choosing from 60. And if I'm like, all right, Colorado, I'm looking at this class. I don't know. Maybe these guys all turn out great, but they're a bunch of 3-stars. So you got to totally believe in them. I don't know. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. And looking there, Jordan Seaton, offensive tackle, who was like at the top offensive tackle in the country. He's playing.
Yep.
He's starting. He's doing fine. And then they got like a DB and a wide receiver, but that out of the freshman class, that's about it that I could see.
All right. We'll be back after this with people not liking the noon games. All right. Speaking of Coach Prime in Colorado, they are kicking off this weekend at 10 a.m. in Boulder. Wake and Bake, Colorado.
At Colorado especially, yes.
Puff, puff.
You know what to do. 10 a.m. So you can be on Big Noon. There has been a lot of discussion over the Big Noon. People are not enjoying the noon kicks, namely Ohio State fans. And I got to say, they have a point. Ohio State will play 7 times this year. 7 of their 12 games are at noon, including the final 6 games of the season. And they moved next week's Indiana game to noon. And some of it is Big Noon. Fox wants the TV ratings for the Big Noon. They have re-established this TV window, and they get good ratings. And sometimes they don't have a good game, so they just throw Ohio State Purdue on because they're going to get a couple million. They know a few million Buckeye fans are going to watch, right? Ohio State might be the most popular team in college football. I may have the biggest fan base. I kind of think that's my sense. I don't know. But if not, it's close. So they play on. But like this weekend, they're on Big Ten Network at noon playing Northwestern. So there are some positives and negatives. When you're home game, the fans don't like the noon because you really got to jam in your tailgate time. If you're traveling from across the state or, even an hour or 2 away, you got to get up really early. There's a lot more traffic because there's a more condensed time to get in. So that's not fun. You don't get the tailgate. You can't sit around and watch other games while you're hanging out, throwing the football, grilling some burgers, whatever, getting liquored up. It's tough for recruiting, especially if you're trying to recruit nationally like Ohio State does. You try to fly guys in on Saturday morning. They play Friday night. There's that. So this is the situation. But Buckeyes have to do six of them. They asked Ryan Day about it. He said, hey, I get a lot of criticism. Let someone else deal with this. Not my job. We'll play whenever. Fair enough. Pat, who's right? Fox, Big Ten Network, or the fans?
I have many thoughts here.
Good.
First of all, you signed over your friggin' souls to the networks. They're going to do what they want. That's the bargain. You made it. Shut up. Secondly,
the fans didn't make
Dan,
it.
They're along for the ride. Sorry.
They did.
But here's the thing with the fans. They are like the coaches every time there's a rule change. Complain. The games are too early. Somebody earlier this year was complaining, we got too many night games. We don't want the night games. It's too late.
That's right.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. Michigan State said that, yeah.
We don't want home games in August. It's too hot. Wait till you play a playoff game in December. It's going to be too cold. It's always something. It is always something for somebody to complain about. I don't care. I have no sympathy for anybody except for I don't like making a Pacific Coast team play a noon kickoff that's a 9 a.m. body clock game for them. And I felt a little bit bad for Rutgers playing the 11 p.m. Friday night kickoff at USC. But again, y'all made the deal. Deal with the deal.
Part of the reason I'm sure that Colorado wanted to move over and switch conferences, part of the reason is to play in the, a different window that's not 10 Eastern. So here they are. It's 10 Eastern, just another 10 Eastern, So there's that. That, like Pat said, that's what you signed up for. I'm reminded of, the SEC had their deal with CBS, right? The CBS primetime game was always at 3:30 Eastern. And for years, fans moaned about that because the best game of the week was in the middle of the day, especially a certain school located in Baton Rouge with a tradition of night games. I would hear often how angry they were, especially years when LSU was really good and they were on the 3:30. And there was I don't know if the SEC really tried, but schools definitely did. There was no movement from CBS, on moving that game to prime time. There was no movement. That was never going to happen. And in the end, I think other things factored into why the CBS and the SEC aren't together anymore. But that was one of them. ESPN gave the SEC, right, 3 windows, including the last one to put its best game on at 7:00 on ABC. I understand, as someone who was raised, where I was raised, where night games, especially early in the season, because it's so hot, were always a thing that you wanted. I do get it. I do understand it, but I also understand that, as Pat said, when you kind of give over pretty much a portion of your conference to a TV network and you rely so heavily on that network for your revenue and your resources, they're going to make, all the decisions that they want to make, especially in regard to what time that they televise your games. And that's the way it is. And again, I kind of feel somewhat for the fans that have to. I mean, Dan, the tailgating's like the best part of football. The game's not the best part. Tailgating's the best part. The drinking and the eating and all that stuff.
I mean, you're going to tell me twice.
Yeah.
I think the issue's it's noon. Like NFL's at 1. It's not much better, but it's a little bit better. And like noon's tough. And then when it's 11 in Central Time, it's tough. At 10 a.m. Like
10 a.m. is tough. Now, I covered 2 10 a.m. kickoffs last year at Colorado. Didn't seem to be holding people back.
Well, there's a will, there's a way. There's a will, there's a way. I think the best time's 2:30, 3:30, 4. You got some time to get in, settle in, get everything set up, cook, you have a good time. It's a whole, but that's a whole day event. I don't know.
Right.
Selfishly, for us,
noon's all right.
I like the noon.
Yeah.
I like the noon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're done. You can, at 5:30 or so, you're done. You can watch the end of the 3 afternoon kickoffs, right? The late afternoon kickoffs, and you can watch all of the night kickoffs. So for us, selfishly, I think it's great. I was excited.
Night games.
I was yes, night games are absolutely the worst for us. And I was actually kind of excited when I saw that Ohio State and because I'm going to cover that game almost certainly in Columbus, and that game was on at noon. But that is probably will be a top 5 matchup. The winner will probably go to the Big Ten championship game and guaranteed a CFP spot. And that game kicking off at noon feels like a travesty.
The late, great Howard Schnellenberger had a long treatise that he would go on regularly about why 4 o'clock was the ideal time to play a game. And he would he'd puff on his pipe and say, 4 o'clock, you have time to have a wonderful tailgate before the game, and you can run your errands in the morning, and then you can set up for your tailgate, you can have your tailgate, and then after the game, you can go out and have a nice dinner. And that was back in the day. Louisville had no TV games, so they could have them at 4. They could set their own schedule.
Yeah, play it whenever.
Then all of a sudden,
no TV time. That's 2 hours and 40-minute game too. Yeah, a lot of running. I'm sure back then, maybe 2 hours and 20.
Late in the year in the Midwest, you want to play the noon game is good because it's your best shot of getting sun. Like Michigan Ohio State game is mandated at noon. They're not doing it any other time than noon, and it's cold enough and all that. Quickly on this one, the decision by Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry to bring this tiger to the game last week. It continues on. There's some good stuff here. He spoke to the Advocate this week, or said something that the Advocate maybe gave a speech. Our tiger
function.
Yeah. So Mike the Tiger they used to wheel him around Tiger Stadium and scare the opposing team, and they put him in a cage, and then they'd leave him outside the locker room of the opposing team, all the stuff. As I understand it, the animal, it's either animal rights or just veterinarians or zoologists said, look,
PETA.
Is it really PETA they listen to, or just like reasonable people like
PETA.
You're scaring the hell out of this lion or this tiger, sorry, by having 100,000 people scream at him? Now, Governor Landry said that he called that woke people. Woke people ruin this. These woke people have tried to take tradition out of our country. It's tradition that built this country. So he's wanted to bring the Mike the Tiger back, but he couldn't do that, even though there is a Mike the Tiger. So he went and brought this other tiger. It's like a scab of Mike the Tiger, like off-brand Mike the Tiger.
A knockoff, a stunt double.
Yeah,
stunt
right.
double Mike the Tiger.
Remember, at first, the first story was quote, mystery tiger, is how they described
Mystery
it.
tiger.
A mystery tiger. Because nobody knew where it was from. It ended up being obviously from Florida and had a name, Omar Bradley, of all things.
That's the name
The
of
tiger's name was Omar
Name for a
Bradley
World
from
War
Orlando.
II general?
Yeah,
Oh my
I don't know.
God.
Omar Bradley the Tiger.
So they-
My God.
Okay.
Yeah, they wheeled old Omar onto the field.
This is the dumbest
the
story
governor is involved in this. He's yelling at people, calling them woke. He stated he said, of course, Alabama beats them 42-13. And I think Mike the Tiger is sitting over in his lair going, see what happens when you bring scab Mike the Tiger in? See what happens? Is it a real thing or nothing? Look what happened. It's 42-13. Governor Landry, this guy, I love this guy. Our live tiger, unfortunately, disappointingly, was the only tiger who showed up on Saturday.
Well, yeah, there weren't any more tigers allowed in the stadium.
Well,
That
I
one
think he was
probably
talking about the
shouldn't have been
LSU
either.
Tigers.
I know.
Yeah,
Dan,
first
I know.
time, long time, first time. Like he's calling into the.
Right. To trash talk the team.
This story has all the trappings of a good old fashioned Louisiana story. Politics,
Mhm.
a live animal, alcohol, and football. Right, all going on inside of Tiger Stadium.
Oh,
Just
it got
perfect
wild.
Louisiana tale.
LSU student was arrested for saying he was going to kill the governor on Twitter because he disagreed
that
with
too,
this
yes.
this thing.
Oh my
Yeah.
That
Arrest.
wasn't good.
Yeah.
Guess what? You get arrested for that. Don't do that.
Yeah,
Don't do that.
Don't do that,
Okay.
yeah. Don't do that.
And then, of course, this led to the Tiger King star Carol Baskin. If you remember Tiger King from COVID, everyone watched
The one
Tiger
that
King.
murdered or allegedly murdered her husband.
I can't remember how the story went, but she
remember.
was one of the. Yeah, there were some
She's a great
unusual
resource on
personalities in
anything,
that
I'm
thing.
sure. Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
quite
Pretty-
angry and said bringing a live tiger to a football game is quite possibly a violation of the federal Lacey Act. Who knew? Maybe. Like that's what Pat, you know what? You brushed up on your Lacey Act today. And
Not a
Louisiana's
lot. No.
own dangerous animal laws. And it also sends the wrong message to students about respect for wildlife.
There we go.
It reinforces the dangerous idea that nature exists solely for our entertainment. I mean, as someone who enjoys Fat Bear Week, I would have to say, yes, that's quite true. I talked to someone today who said one thing you guys do well on this podcast is not to humble brag or self-brag us, but you take the irrational and make it just somehow make it rational. So that like this,
I don't know whether we.
this
I don't know whether we
story
do that.
is
Do we?
real. Okay, we have a death threat against a governor. We have Tiger. Like,
Yeah. The Lacey Act prohibits the illegal trade of wildlife, fish, and plants.
plants.
The
Plants
The
too.
illegal-
You know what?
trade?
What is an illegal
illegal
plant
trade.
other than weed and only in certain states?
Well,
There's illegal plants.
weed and maybe mezcal or something. I don't know. Mushrooms.
Dan,
Is that an illegal plant you got there? Or is that a
They're
tiger?
illegal plants, huh?
Is that you dragging a tiger
Hey.
behind your car there, dude? Or you got an illegal, just got some illegal
Yes,
plants.
we're dragging the tiger behind the car to cover up for the illegal plants in the trunk.
Calgorithm has the legal
Just-
plants. Anyway, all right, go ahead, Ross.
There have been phases of Mike the Tiger's involvement in the stadium, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned the cages. I mean, when I was, 10, 15, 20 years ago, I used to go to games there in high school, and they had him in the cage, and he would just kind of sit there in the corner. And before that, right? They had him in the cage, and he'd go around the whole field. And then before that, he'd be in the cage. He'd go around the field, and they'd stick a microphone in, and they might try to
prod him,
get him to roar by poking and prodding, and he would roar into the microphone. And then before that, they positioned the cage. They did all that, and then they positioned the cage in front of the visiting. And there's real stories about this, the visiting locker room, where they would literally throw Mike red meat, and he would tear it up, and blood be everywhere. It's like a horror scene in the cage. And so visiting players and coaches would come out and, oh my God, right? Live Bengal tiger, ripping apart some red meat and blood everywhere. So that's the good old days.
Yeah, well, bring it. People are trying to kill tradition, Governor Landry says. Can't.
Yeah, we seem to be bringing a lot of things back.
I don't know. I don't know.
But I'll stop there.
Listen.
Yeah.
We'll stop at Mike the Tiger, or this Tiger, Omar the Tiger. All right. We're going to do some intriguing games after this. We need to pick some football games. All right, we are going to pick race for the case. We're going to pick Tennessee, Georgia. We talked a lot about that in the last show. We're going to pick Nebraska, USC. We talked a lot about that on the last show. We're also going to pick Utah, Colorado, LSU, Florida, and Tulane, Navy. So let's not pick those games. There are other intriguing games. This is not the most intriguing slate of the weekend I've ever seen, but there's something out there for us. Pat, give me a game you're interested in seeing. It may be under the radar.
Oregon, Wisconsin. Oregon has a chance to sweep its games against the old guard of the Big Ten in its first season, because their last Big Ten game is against Washington. They have a chance to win all of their, deep into the heart of Midwest road trips. And Dan Lanning gets a chance to audition a little more for the NFL if that's what he's interested in, because it sounds like there might be some NFL interest in him, been compared to Dan Campbell. And I can see a little bit of that. And then on the flip side of it, Wisconsin has done absolutely nothing noteworthy yet in almost 2 full seasons under Luke Fickell. I am very surprised by that, and I keep waiting, and I wonder if possibly they could get it together for this game, but I doubt it.
I agree. Interesting game. Dan Lanning to the NFL. You buying it?
It's interesting. He's got a good combination. I see the Dan Campbell kind of comp just because he can come across at least as a player's coach, but he's a hard-nosed football guy. Seems to be a very good motivator. I wouldn't put it past him, but I also think he's absolutely killing it at Oregon, and Phil Knight loves him. So I would stay there for a while.
These college jobs, they're obviously not what they once were. These coaches are making a lot of money, just as much as some of these NFL coaches, right? Maybe more, right? And these contracts are guaranteed. And now the whole system's moving more professional. So you're going to have less. Think about this, and this is a little overshadowed. It kind of ties into the Deion Sanders talk. Think about it, though. The one thing that you hear college coaches complain about, or the biggest thing, is recruiting and having to text kids all the time and you court them around campus and all that stuff. And there's going to be less of that in this new era. Not saying that kids are just going to go for the money in this revenue sharing era, but you're going to be recruiting more like older kids and transfer portal guys, and it is going to be a more about maybe the money and less about what you can show them around campus or how often you text them. So I think there is going to be less recruiting when we get to the point of this full steam revenue share. And so I think these college jobs, especially the top 15, 20, 25 programs, are pretty cushy, right? And I don't know. I wonder how much that will affect.
Have you spoken to a coach? This is the hardest job on the face of the earth.
Yeah, of course. That's right. Mm-hmm. They're paid like it.
Paid like it. Ross, got an intriguing game?
How about Clemson travels to Pitt? And this game was going to be probably much bigger than it is. Pitt had to go lose 2 straight after I visited Pitt. So, of course, I visited Pitt, wrote a story, and they lost 2 straight after they were undefeated. And then Clemson, of course, lost to Louisville. So all of a sudden, this game isn't for the ACC championship game appearance as much as we thought in CFP appearance. But still, there's a little shred of hope alive, especially for Clemson. You know, if they can win, and Miami would probably have to lose again. Maybe I can't remember the tiebreakers, but Clemson needs to win, and this is a big game for Clemson to keep alive the CFP hopes. And I don't know that the ACC is going to get a second team in, right? So you got to get to the championship game, and once you get to the championship game, well, kind of anything goes. So big one here. See if Pitt can stop kind of the bleeding of a couple of losses back to back here, and see if Dabo can stay in the hunt.
I'm going to take Texas visiting Arkansas. Start with that. Anytime Texas visits Arkansas, it's big. The 1969 game of the century. President Nixon showed up. Texas came back from a 14-0 deficit in the fourth quarter to win it 15-14. It's a huge game. Arkansas fans have always hated Texas. They had the old Southwest Conference. Then they go to the SEC. Now the Longhorns are back, and they are in Fayetteville. And Texas is favored in this game by, 13.5. But Arkansas, they were doing well. Lost by 4 at A&M, beat Tennessee, and then all of a sudden LSU blows them out, and they get blown out by Mississippi. They beat Mississippi State in the middle there, but can they capture any of that September, early October magic and play up and beat and compete with Texas, who's coming off a huge win at Florida, and they've handled business, right? So I'm intrigued at what Arkansas's got in it. It should be a great scene regardless. Great historic moment for the Razorbacks, but can they get up and give the Longhorns a game? I'm interested to see this. A lot at stake for Texas. They have to win these games. They do not have a great victory on their schedule, and they still have to go to Texas A&M at the end of the year. And a 2-loss Texas team without a good win. Their wins are Colorado State, Michigan crushed them. It hurt them that Michigan didn't turn out. Give them credit for trying. Didn't work out. UTSA, Louisiana Monroe, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Vandy, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky. If they lose a second game to Texas A&M, and they've got to get in that mash of 2-loss teams, and they don't have any victories that are notable, it's a problem. And certainly if they lost to Arkansas, they'd be a problem. So they're projected SEC champ in the rankings, but they could be out. So there's still something here.
Yeah, that one I can't wait to see that game, because I think Arkansas is going to be primed. They got a couple key players that are probable on the injury list. If they play and they can play well, little upset alert. Arizona State at Kansas State, 7:00. 2 teams trying to stay in the hunt in the Big 12. I put this in my opportunity or desperation list in the 40-yard dash. For Arizona State, pure opportunity. You're playing with house money. Had a great overachieving season. Kenny Dillingham, great hire. It's working out. And you've got a chance to extend it. Why not shoot for the moon there? K-State, kind of expected to be in the Big 12 championship ramble all along, and they've lost a couple. Backs against the wall. You lose this one, and you're out of the picture in mid-November. That's going to be a little bit disappointing in Manhattan. So, big stakes, I think, for that one in the Little Apple.
Every BYU game the last few weeks has been insane. So I'm going to assume that this one also is going to be insane. Kansas plays at BYU. And a little something about KU. They're 3-6. They are 5 of their losses. They had a fourth quarter lead. A couple of them a double-digit lead. They've blown several. They're capable, I think, of the upset. And BYU's, shown a little vulnerability. Obviously, they've had to come back and score in the last second to beat Oklahoma State and UCF and Utah, of course, last week. They had a little trouble earlier this week with Baylor. So undefeated on the line, but here comes Lance Leopold and a team that probably in Kansas isn't really 3-6. They're not a 3-6 team. They're much better than that, and I think this could be a game. And Vegas knows it. You guys see the spread on this game? It's 2.5.
Yeah, small, right? Yeah, that's wild.
2.5 for BYU. Vegas knows, Dan.
Vegas knows. I'm taking Baylor at West Virginia. Both teams 5-4. And this is one of those games where it's like good season, not good season is kind of hangs in the balance for both teams. Now, Baylor has made a huge comeback, won 3 in a row. Dave Aranda kind of off the hot seat. This would be an impressive victory at West Virginia. And then they're at Houston and Kansas. Houston's gotten a lot better this year, of course, this season. But, like, win this game and, like, 8 wins is not out of the question for Baylor, which would have been absolutely crazy. And then at the same time, West Virginia's come back and won 2 straight. They win this game there. They got UCF at home and they go at Texas Tech. They could end up with 8 wins or at least 7 or something like that. So I just feel like there's games just these mid Big 12 teams who's had a good season, and you can kind of ride that into the offseason and say, look, we won 7-8 games. Got to win this one right here between Baylor and West Virginia. Race for the case. I'm leading still. I'm 36 wins. Pat's 34. Joe's 33. Ross 32. All of us 500.
A little change of the order for second place there. A little change of the order.
I had an absolute mess of a week last week. I was 1-5. We got to pick ourselves up here.
Yeah, I didn't do so well. 2-4. 2-4. Let's start with the big one. Tennessee at Georgia. Number 7, Tennessee at number 12, Dogs. Georgia's given 10. We do not know the status of Nico. Will he play for the Vols? Game is at 7:30. No noon there. 7:30 ABC. Say this about ESPN ABC. They ain't putting any of these SEC games at noon.
Yep.
They're going prime time or 3:30. Pat.
Just a nightmare to try to pick this game without knowing Tennessee's quarterback status. And we won't know probably till Saturday morning for sure, maybe Saturday afternoon. So if you really want to bet this game, hold your money. Yes, until late. I think the spread's too big. I think Georgia's going to struggle to score. I think Georgia will win because they always beat Tennessee and they play well between the hedges, and they haven't played a home game in like a month. But I don't think this is going to be the usual Georgia blowout of Tennessee, so I'm going to take Tennessee and the points.
Yeah, Nico's in concussion protocol. Josh Heupel acted earlier in the week that he would be fine and play. He was listed as questionable in the Wednesday night SEC injury report. I'm going to guess that he plays. I'm just guessing here. And thus, I'm going to pick Tennessee to cover and perhaps even win this game. I like Tennessee to go in there and play well, and we've just seen Georgia struggle, especially at the quarterback position with turnovers. So give me the Vols to cover.
I'm going to do the complete opposite of Ross. I'm going to guess that he doesn't play, and I'm also going to throw in there Dylan Sampson's been banged up. He's going to be playing, but running backs dealing with injuries, it's going to impact his performance, or at least it should against a run defense like this for Georgia. I feel like the way that they played last week, that they're going to be pissed off and trying to take it out on Tennessee. And without Nico, there's a lot of reason for them to be able to cover that 10.
I think their backup quarterback, Gaston Moore, is not that bad for Tennessee. So we'll see. And Dylan Sampson, I don't know. He's what stirs the drink. But what wins it for Tennessee is the defense. They've given up under 20 no one scored 20 or more. Arkansas scored 19. That was it. This defense is better than the defense last week at Ole Miss, I think, that totally controlled Georgia. Do I think Georgia will do better? Yes. Am I going to count on Carson Beck being a little bit better? Yes. But if you're going to give me 10 points in this Tennessee defense, I'm taking Tennessee. I don't know whether they can win it. It would be an unbelievable victory for Josh Heupel and the Big Orange, but you give me 10 in that defense against a Georgia team that has not shown that level of offense. They're going to get a pass rush on them. I'm taking Tennessee, no problem.
Joe is lone dog.
Lone dog, not bad.
That's not going to work out for me. I can already tell.
You already regret your pick, don't you? See, I made some good salient points, didn't I?
A few.
Utah at number 17, Colorado. I mentioned this earlier. Colorado is giving 11.5. Utah's on like their 4th-string quarterback. Game is at noon on Fox. Ross?
Oh, Dan, every time you count old Kyle Whittingham back, he has something. And I feel like this spread is just too much. And it's early, right? We talked about how early it is. I just think that Utah will do enough to kind of hang around enough to cover the 11.5. I don't necessarily expect them to win. Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, I think they'll do their thing, and Colorado will continue to march toward the Big 12 championship game. But at least give me Utah to stay within 11.
I think this number might have floated up. I thought it was like 10 earlier, and now it's like 11.5. But so I'm taking the Buffs. I'm laying them. Couple things here. Utah coming off their most emotional game of the year, BYU, the Holy War, and the way they lost could take the last air out of a balloon that has been leaking air all season, frankly, or at least since the first 3 games. Secondly, the quarterback they played there, Rose, is out, so they're back to Isaac Wilson, freshman. He's played like a freshman, struggled, so that's not a good deal. And thirdly, here's my stat on Colorado. They have won the second half in every single game this year. They have outscored their opponents. Coach Prime, who supposedly doesn't know what he's doing, he's either making good halftime adjustments or he's got a mentally and physically tough team that comes through in the second half. And that's how you cover, by adding points at the end and getting over 11.5. Buffs win, cover.
So one, agree with everything that you just said there, Pat. Not going to repeat most of that because it makes perfect sense. This Colorado team's hot right now. Utah's dealing with their own issues. I mean, their own offensive coordinator stepped down in the middle of the season. They've got so many uncovered problems that they're dealing with. But the other part too here, early ass kickoff. I'm going to take the team that's sleeping in their own beds, not the team that's in the hotel, traveling, doing all that. 10 a.m. kickoff for them. So I'm going to take Colorado.
Colorado's in a hotel.
What did it say?
It's saying URI. It's saying URI football, buddy.
Sorry. You're right. It's late.
Yeah. They're going to be down at that really nice...
traveling. You know what I meant.
Not traveling.
They're going to be down at the very nice Omni in Broomfield.
Yeah.
That's, 10 miles.
They'll be in, but that's all right. Point taken. I'm taking Colorado. I think that was a physical, emotional game for Utah. They have no idea who's playing quarterback. It's a guy playing quarterback was benched early this year. Buffs. It may take a while, but they'll get rolling. I'll take the Buffs there. Number 22.
Ross, lone Ute.
Number 22 LSU giving 4.5 at Florida. 3:30 on ABC. I mean, they can come visit their favorite Tiger from Central Florida.
Yeah, he's in Orlando.
He's in Orlando, and they're going. Coincidence?
Omar Bradley.
Governor Landry will be quite pleased.
Usually road teams stay, just south of Gainesville. It's in between Gainesville and Orlando. It's not a far trip.
Hey, buddy.
An hour. Omar is like right there.
Right there. Got to bring Omar by the hotel. Stop by the hotel.
Yeah, he was such good luck against Alabama.
Why is this tiger named after a World War II general?
I don't.
Why?
I mean, really, Pat?
Why?
I mean, that's your question? I have a lot more questions.
Well, a lot of questions.
Among the many questions of this entire bizarre story, including a kid who's going to LSU getting charged with threatening to kill the governor. Like, I mean, oh my gosh. Kid, you're doing great. You're in college. Don't. Oh, no.
No,
he's like, I thought it was a joke.
That,
it's not a joke.
Call your buddy and say, I'd like to kill the governor.
Yeah.
And then hang up.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Anyway, Pat, who's
I don't know. This game's ridiculous. I mean,
by the way, there's no good lines. These remaining 3 games, I picked the most random games that I could find.
Joe.
Dude, there was nothing to pick from. All these lines were huge. I wanted to get something competitive.
What's the line? You don't even have a line on Tulane Navy. Put that in the chart there.
Yeah. I'm taking LSU because heck, they're still mathematically alive in
Hell
the
yeah.
SEC race.
Hell yeah.
And given strength of schedule, they've actually got a path to play in Atlanta. So they got something to play for. Florida has stopped having anything to play for. That was just a train wreck of a performance against Texas. So I don't have any faith that they're still got any juice left. So I'll take LSU.
It is remarkable that somehow 3-loss LSU, 2 losses in conference has a chance to play in the SEC championship game, and not a whole lot of chaos is needed.
No.
Peter Burns from SEC Network did crunch the numbers here, and if every SEC favorite wins over the next 3 weeks, every favored team, and Arkansas beats Missouri, LSU goes to the SEC championship game against the winner of Texas and Texas A&M. Pretty wild. So I'm with Pat on the fact that LSU was something there to play for. And they have, I think, somewhat recently in this series done pretty well in the swamp. LSU has just historically.
Throwing
so
shoes.
give me the Tigers.
Throw the shoe.
To cover. The shoe game. The shoe game. What is it? The shoe, the fog, and the kick.
Yeah, a lot happening.
That was wild. I was there for that.
So as a Brian Kelly hater, you mentioned this on the Sunday show that Notre Dame fans hate
I got
Brian
so
Kelly.
many Notre Dame fans texted me that I know. They're like, you were exactly right. We were talking about how
Because
great we
it's
looked
always
at it.
true.
It was more texts about Brian Kelly's losing than when Notre Dame is winning. So go ahead.
I know enough about Brian Kelly to know that when he drops a disappointing game that he was supposed to win, that he definitely was not going to, he always comes back with a pretty strong performance. So I think that they're going to show up here. They're going to cover against Florida because Brian Kelly needs to reestablish a little bit of confidence in him from the recruits, from the fan base, all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm taking LSU also for that reason as well. Although I will say this, Billy Napier, be really nice to win this game. I know they said you're back, but do you really want to finish losing to Georgia, getting blown out by Texas, losing to LSU, and losing to Ole Miss? He needs one of these two. The Florida State game doesn't matter unless you lose it.
Right.
But
right.
I mean, a little something. But I will take LSU in this one. Nebraska at USC. Trojans giving 9, 4 p.m. on Fox. Nice 1 o'clock start for the people in LA. See, they don't have to do noon. It's nice. Ross?
This is just a late enough start out west where new Nebraska offensive coordinator Dana Holgorsen could have 4 Red Bulls by kickoff. So, maybe 6. I don't know.
That's the kind of analysis you want.
So there you go. And so because of that, Dan, I'm going with the Red Bulls. Go Huskers. I think they cover that. That's too big of a line anyway. So I think Dana does turn around the offense. Maybe they move the ball a little more. And not only do they cover the 8.5, but I think they got a good chance to knock off USC and get that illustrious 6th win for a bowl trip.
Both teams. Nothing about this I like. You got the panic button. You got the panic button at USC changing quarterbacks. You got the panic button at Nebraska changing coordinators and going to somebody who wasn't even with the team until last week. I'm taking USC
thinning
at home.
hair mullet man.
The thinning-haired mullet man.
Right.
I'm not seeing it, so I'm taking USC and Jaden Mayava. Their only loss at home so far was the one they yacked up against Penn State, and it was really actually a very good game. Other than that, they've played pretty well at home, so I am taking them to keep Nebraska on the 5-win threshold in search of a bowl.
I'm with Ross on this one. I think that this line's too big. I don't think that Nebraska's going to win, but the added variable of not really being able to know what you're preparing for, you don't know what Holgerson's going to do from a play calling standpoint. It's not like he's putting in a new offense, but there is going to be a different approach for who's making those decisions. The same could be said for Maeva, which you're throwing in a completely different style of quarterback. They could use him totally differently than what they were doing with Miller Moss, but 9 points seems doable for Nebraska that needs to keep themselves alive to play in a bowl game.
9 points. Good Lord. I'm going to go with USC. Nebraska is always in close games, unless they play Indiana, and they lose them. USC loses their close games too, but they win big.
Yep.
And I think they'll get it going. I feel like I'm going to regret this pick, but I would regret it the other way also. But
it's a regrettable game.
It's a regrettable
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
I have regrets.
Yeah.
Regrets, I have a few. USC. Fight on. Number 25, Tulane, giving 7 at Navy, high noon, ESPN 2. Back to you, Pat.
Another excruciating game to pick. I firmly believe Tulane is the better team. I don't know whether they can win by 7 or more. I'm taking the wave.
There you go.
I think they can. Their freshman quarterback, Darian Mens, is good. John Summerall teams play better and better as the season goes along. Roll wave.
Tulane still has a shot, to get this G5 playoff berth. I think they're undefeated in the AAC. They're only 2 losses to power conference teams, so they're still in this thing. So they got a lot to play for here, but this is at Navy, and no one walks in the whatever stadium name, Navy.
Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium.
Navy Marine Corps. Nobody walks into Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium, especially the way the midshipmen have been playing. I know they lost a couple after starting undefeated, but I like their offense. I like their quarterback Blake Horvath, and he kind of does it all too, kind of like Army's quarterback. And they run this really fun kind of like triple option spread offense type. So I think they're going to do enough to stay within a touchdown.
I'm going to take Tulane. You mentioned Mensa, Pat. I'm a big fan of his. He's somebody to watch when the portal opens up if somebody doesn't try to scoop him up, because he is super talented. This Navy team's been great, but they've slowed down a little bit. Tulane's surging. We've seen how they've played against the top half of the AAC or better, more competitive teams, so I'm going to take Tulane.
Tulane. Sorry, Navy.
Man, I am lone whatever.
You're
I
either
think
gonna have a
3
big
times
week or
on
you're
this. Yeah.
You're cooked.
This is going to be
Lone
bad
Nitty.
or really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you got a lock of the week? Anyone?
Yeah, I do. I have a lock of the week.
All right.
How about this one? Yeah, we talked about this game earlier. It's a fun rivalry game, right? Texas at Arkansas. Texas is a 13.5-point favorite on the road. They get crazy and up for this game in Fayetteville, and I think they'll be up enough to stay within that. So I think the Hogs cover it, Dan, stay within a couple touchdowns.
All right.
I like the pick. I am going with UCLA. I've been riding the Bruins here the last couple weeks. I am sticking with them, getting 3.5 at Washington. They've won 3 in a row. They're playing so much better. They've turned the corner. And here's the setup for Washington. They played Saturday night late at Happy Valley. We know, hey, small airport, tough place to get out of. All-night flight home, and now they got to play on Friday. So they lose all of Sunday, basically, and they got a day less to get ready because it's a Friday game. UCLA played on Saturday, so they got more rest, more prep, and I'm taking the Bruins to win in Seattle.
I really like that pick. That was one that I was debating
nice pick.
taking. I'm going to take South Carolina covering 12.5, though, versus Missouri. Uncertainty what's happening with Brady Cook at quarterback, and we saw the other options that they tried to turn to with Drew Pine, who I'm not sure how he's still playing. I feel like he's 26 at this point. The other part with that, though, is that Missouri's offensive line, it's been really, really shaky. They got whooped against Texas A&M, and we know how good South Carolina's defensive front has been to the point where they take over football games. I think this is going to look a lot like the way that they played against Oklahoma. I think they're going to win this thing pretty handedly and by 2 scores.
Yep.
All right. I considered sticking with Arizona State, who's been very good to me this year. Very good. They're hot. They're winning. Kenny Dillingham's team's winning. Cam Scadaboo is back after the lost dog incident and the shoulder injury. But I just can't I don't know. Hell, I'm going to take them. Okay, let me debate it. They're getting 9 at Kansas State. Kansas State's just so solid. Kansas State scares me. They're getting 9, so they're plus 9. My other, though, is this. Georgia Southern is giving 7.5 against Troy. And I don't understand this spread, and I tried to look this up, and I don't get it. Why is it only 7.5? Troy is 2-7, 1-4 in the league. Georgia Southern's 6-3, 4-1 in the league. And you look at the stats, you're looking for injuries. I don't get this spread. I think it should be bigger. I would take Georgia Southern, but I guess nobody really paying attention to Georgia Southern. Troy, so I'm going to go with Arizona State. I'm going to stick with the Sun Devils, and I'm going to take that. That'll be my lock.
You didn't even need our help. Look at there.
I didn't. I talked it out. I talked it out.
Yeah, that's it.
That's
it. Way to verbalize.
Yeah,
That's good.
hour 15 into this thing or wherever we're at.
Yeah, let's get the hell out of here. How about that?
We don't get paid. We don't get paid for extra. Yeah. Appreciate everyone listening. We'll be back Sunday with some overreaction to all of it. Appreciate all you guys sharing us on social media, telling your friends about us. We'll talk to you later.